So the European Union has just dropped the world's first ever comprehensive AI law, the AI Act. And the question on everyone's mind is a big one. Is this massive regulation going to crush innovation under a mountain of rules, or is it maybe, just maybe, a secret weapon for building the next generation of AI we can actually trust? All right, let's get into it. So if you're an innovator, maybe a startup founder, or hey, even just someone fascinated by where tech is headed, this one's for you. Because the AI Act isn't just some big list of things you can't do, it's also a framework with some very specific tools designed to help you figure all this out.
To really get our heads around how this actually works in practice, we're going to follow the journey of a hypothetical AI innovator. We'll see the challenges they run into, the tools they find along the way, and the big picture thinking behind the EU's whole strategy.
Okay, so the very first thing our innovator has to figure out is this. Does their shiny new creation fall into the most heavily regulated category of all, what they call high-risk AI? Because believe me, that one classification changes everything. And this definition right here, it's absolutely crucial. The EU isn't just worried about technical bugs, it's focused on the potential for real-world harm to people's health, their safety, and their fundamental rights. We're talking about AI used in things like medical devices, critical infrastructure, or law enforcement. This is where the EU draws a very, very thick line in the sand. And if your system lands in that high-risk bucket, well, you are looking at a serious uphill climb. This is not a simple checklist you just tick off. You need a continuous risk management system. You need bulletproof data governance. You need to produce mountains of technical documentation. Oh, and you have to prove your system is accurate, secure, and that a human can actually step in and take control. For our innovators, this can look like a giant, impossible wall of compliance. It is so easy to look at that list and just think, well, that's it. Innovation in Europe is officially over. But that is only half the story. See, the Act builds something else right alongside that scary rulebook.
And this quote pretty much reveals the other side of the coin. It's written right into the law. A core goal is to support innovation, and they specifically call out smaller companies and startups. This shows you that the rules and the support are meant to work together hand in hand.
So, how does the support actually work? Well, our innovator, who's been staring at that giant wall of compliance, suddenly discovers it's not a solid wall after all. It's more like a climbing wall, and it comes with safety ropes and instructors. The Act literally provides a toolkit to help them get to the top. Now, the star of this toolkit is something called the AI Regulatory Sandbox. Just think of it like a safe playground to build, train, and test your AI, all under the helpful supervision of the very regulators who will eventually sign off on it. And get this isn't just a nice idea. The Act requires every single EU member state to set up at least one of these sandboxes. And the process is pretty straightforward. You apply to get in, you get to develop and test your system in this controlled space, and all the while you're getting direct guidance from the authorities. But here's the real game changer. If you successfully complete the sandbox program, you get what's called an exit report, and that report can massively speed up your final approval process. It's basically a fast track through a lot of the red tape. But what if you need to test your AI out in the messy, unpredictable real world? Well, the Act has a path for that too, called real-world testing. The key difference is supervision versus consent. In the sandbox, you have the authorities guiding you. Out in the real world, you absolutely need explicit, informed consent from every single person involved. You need approval from market authorities, and there are strict time limits, usually just 6 months. So you have two different paths for two different needs.
Okay, so the Act also gets something really important. A tiny startup in a garage just doesn't have the same resources as a global tech giant. So it actually bakes in specific advantages to help the little guys not just survive, but actually compete.
And this is where it gets super practical. Small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, they get priority access to those sandboxes. They literally get to jump the line. They pay lower fees for all the official assessments, they get their own dedicated channels to call up and ask for advice, and they even get standardized templates to make that whole mountain of documentation way less daunting.
So when you put it all together, you realize the goal isn't really to create barriers. It's to build a whole new kind of tech ecosystem. One where clear, fair rules and dedicated support systems mean that even the smallest innovators have a real shot at building world-class AI responsibly. All right, let's zoom out for a second. What's the master plan here? Why build this incredibly complex system of rules and support? Well, it's all part of a huge, grand experiment to try and define what the future of AI should even look like. This really shows you the balancing act they're trying to pull off. The EU is betting that all of these things are connected. You can't really boost your competitiveness in the long run if the public doesn't trust your technology, and you won't get that trust unless you protect people's rights and safety. And you know what? True innovation can't happen if it's not safe and trusted. Every piece is designed to hold the others up.
And that right there is the core philosophy of this entire AI Act. The EU is making a massive wager. They're betting that by building the guardrails first, by creating a foundation of safety, of rights, of trust, they'll actually unlock a more sustainable and powerful wave of innovation than a total free-for-all ever could.
So for our innovator, the journey is complex, for sure, but it's not impossible. The path has a lot of rules, yeah, but it's also lined with guideposts and support. The real question now is whether this uniquely European approach, this idea of regulation as a catalyst, is going to become the gold standard for the rest of the world, or if it'll just prove too ambitious to work. The global AI race is on, and Europe has just made its big move.